You're tuning into Black and White Sports on YouTube. The no-holds-barred truth on sports. The main event starts now.
What's up, Black and White sports fans? John Matrix here, and I am back with another video. All right, guys, we have to go back and we have to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers once again, because this Antwon Rose Jr. situation is a mess. It is a mess. Now, we all know that Alejandro Villanueva decided that he was going to cross out the name of Antwon Rose Jr. on the back of his helmet, pretty much because the guy is a criminal involved in a drive-by shooting 2 years ago, and he was shot by the police. And then you actually have other players now. They have come out and they've spoken that they didn't have the information when it comes to the Rose case. Marquise Pouncey is one of those guys. Mika Fitzpatrick actually came out yesterday, and Rose put up a video on this, and he said that the decision to put the name of Antwon Rose Jr. came from upstairs, so from upper management. But the Steelers now, they seem to be in a very, very uncomfortable position. And I'm talking about upper management mainly, because you have players that are coming out and saying this wasn't their decision. They don't really support Antwon Rose Jr. Some players are not going to have his name on the back of their helmets because the Steelers were supposed to have his name on the back of their helmets all season long. And now they're starting to get a lot of backlash. And now it seems to be the owners versus the players. Okay. Now, friends at Outkick actually reached out to the Steelers for a response to all of this. And their director of communications, Bert Lawton, actually said this. And it seems to be like they're saying that the players decided all of this. Okay. So this is what he said. He says, quote, "As our team president, Art Rooney II said on Thursday, the organization supports and respects decisions our players may make relating to social justice activities. And we acknowledge there could be changes this Sunday for players relating to helmet decals. That will be an individual decision," close quote. You see, that goes completely against what all of the players are saying. And I truly believe that the players really did not have all of the information they needed. I mean, a lot of these guys, they had never even heard of Antwon Rose Jr. So somebody in the Steelers organization decided to do this, and it is a bad PR move right now. It's not resonating well with some of the players. And now you have people like myself, Sports Wars, Outkick. We all know that Antwon Rose Jr. was a criminal. I don't know. And actually, you know what? Let me back up a little bit. I'm actually going to blame both the Steelers and the players for this. All it took was a quick 5-minute Google search. That's what I did when I put up my first video on Alejandro Villanueva. And I looked up the Antwon Rose shooting. And it was pretty cut and dry. He was involved in that drive-by shooting, and he actually may have been the trigger man in that shooting. But regardless, he was involved in that, and then he didn't want to get arrested, so he ran because he knew he was guilty. That's all the Steelers need to do. So nobody did their homework. Maybe Alejandro Villanueva was the only one, because when the game started, he actually covered up the name of Antwon Rose Jr. with Alan Cash and a U.S. Army person who was actually killed in combat back in 2004. He's the only one that did his homework. Now, I'm not even going to give a pass to Mika Fitzpatrick or Marquise Pouncey, because they had the name of Antwon Rose Jr. on the back of their helmets for week 1. They should have did their homework too. But when it comes to the Rooney family, this is a very, very bad look. The Rooneys and the Steelers, you know, they're one of the most respected organizations in the NFL. The Steelers have a very, very rich history, but man, they dropped the ball so big on this. You know, maybe they just decided to just pull a name out of a hat and say, you know what, let's just show how woke we are. We don't need to know the facts. You know, we're seeing that across sports in general, you know, with this whole Breonna Taylor thing too. There's way, way, way more facts, I believe, on that case than even this one here. But regardless, Antoine Rose Jr., Breonna Taylor, they were both criminals. And the NFL and the sports world has pretty much been honoring criminals. And when will it end? Now, I'm very, very curious to see what the Steelers fans actually have to say about this, because I'm not sure if the Steelers are actually going to have fans in attendance at games. I'm not sure. But I would love to know what the Steelers fans think of all of this. Because unlike the players, the Steelers fans, for the most part, they're going to actually live in Pittsburgh. And the Antoine Rose Jr. incident happened in Pittsburgh. A lot of these players, they live in other places during the off season, so maybe they really didn't know all of the details of this, and it's pretty clear. But the Rooneys, you guys dropped the ball no matter what. The Rooney family, they run the Steelers. So overall, it falls on them overall. But the players, man, you guys are grown men. You guys went to college. You guys should be able to do your own research on things. You know what? Me and Rose, when we put up videos, we just don't go out and put up videos without doing some kind of research on it. Every video, that we put out, we read, we do some research, make sure that we have our, we dot our I's, cross our T's, that kind of thing. These players, man, they just went with the flow. And they had to know that people like myself, we would do the research on this, and we were going to criticize them for this. I'm not giving the players a pass on this whatsoever. I'm very, very disappointed with the Rooney family in this. Alejandro Villanueva is being criticized by Antoine Rose Jr.'s mother when she pretty much raised a criminal. I hate to say that, but it's the truth. He was a criminal. Your son was a criminal. And what you said about Alejandro Villanueva, who seems to be pretty much the only smart guy on the Steelers, as the rest of the players didn't even question the decision to have his name on the back of their helmets. Nobody questioned anything until they started getting backlash, because everyday normies like myself were able to do 5 minutes of research. The Steelers, they refuse to do any research because it's all about trying to fit a narrative. This is a political move. And we see in politics now, that facts really don't mean much of anything because there's so much fake news going out there. But when you're talking about something sensitive as far as, racial and social injustice, you just now put the cop that shot Antoine Rose Jr. into the bucket of being a racist. And that's absolutely 100% not the case. The cop was actually doing his job. The cop wasn't even found guilty on anything. So now you put a stain on him as well because of your fake woke narrative. That is the danger of woke sports and going woke in general. It's a bunch of fake news. So the Steelers, man, I believe now you're trying to save face. I believe everything that came from you guys, because this completely contradicts from what the players are saying about on this situation. It's going to be interesting to see how many players actually have the name of Antoine Rose Jr. on the back of their helmets. Based on what they know now about the case, 0 players should have his name on the back of their helmets. I'm going to be looking out for that. I'm going to be looking to see how many Steelers actually have the name of a criminal on the back of their helmet now, because none of them should have the name of Antoine Rose Jr. on the back of their helmet. That's just my thoughts on this. What do you guys think of this? The Steelers, they seem to be putting a lot of the blame now on the players. The players say it came from upper management. I tend to be leaning towards the players on this, even though I'm not giving a pass on this, because they should have did their homework and they didn't do it. Anyway, guys, let us know what you think about all this in the comments. Make sure you subscribe to Black and White Sports, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks for watching the show. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Be sure to tune in next time on Black and White Sports.